All right, thanks everybody for joining today. Today we have Craig Whalen from HeadLight, who is currently our main point of contact and is HDOT's customer success manager. And today he's going to be talking about the project intake form, where we have various e-construction platforms with various intake forms. We have ACC, where you're able to create projects on your own, and we have a guide on the wiki site. And we also have Hall Hub, in which we have a new form as well for that. And be on the lookout for the e-construction newsletter, which will be sent out sometime early next week with this form that Craig will be talking about today, and also the other forms for the other e-construction platforms. So with that, I'll hand it off to Craig.
Great, thanks, Cord. As you mentioned, I'm Craig with HeadLight, Customer Success Manager. I think I've met many of you over the years, and good to be able to share this information and hopefully get everybody getting the information they need into HeadLight quickly and effectively. I think some of you may have already used this form, or the previous version of this form, I guess I'll say, and Cord had said that I think there's a link to it through the wiki, and some of you may also have it bookmarked. But we have just made some updates to it that I wanted to highlight because as we're trying to get more and more projects using the new progress payment workflow through HeadLight, there's a little bit more information we need to get input into HeadLight to make sure it works correctly and to make sure that we don't have to go back and forth 5 or 6 times to get it correct and thus delaying any payments. That's the main goal. So for those of you that may not have seen this before, well, I guess a caveat here, this is an updated version of the project creation request form that isn't quite live at the link you guys may have been using already. I've made a few field adjustments and additions that I'll highlight here, but we're going to try to replace that existing link you already have so that you don't have to use a different link if you do have it bookmarked. And we'll make sure that the correct one is in the wiki as well. So if you do need to get a new project set up in HeadLight, obviously one key thing that I ask for is to put it in as quickly as you can, because the more lead time we have to get it set up correctly, the better, to ensure that once somebody's out there in the field, that they can find the project and there's not an issue. Oh, looks like we have a question from Francis. Go ahead.
Can you post the link to the chat form if you can?
Yeah, Cord, could you maybe put the link that's in the wiki at least right now?
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank
Looking
you
for it right now, and we'll post it in the group chat.
Yeah. So anyways, just to highlight the form, as I mentioned, most of this stuff is already available at the link Cord's going to post, and within like a day or so, it should be updated to this newer version. We're just tweaking a few things to make sure it has everything we need for that progress payment workflow. But first of all, it asks you to put in your basic info of who you are, title, organization defaults to HDOT, but if you work for a company like Bowers and Kubota or somebody else, you can overwrite that into here. It does ask for when you need it available. Obviously, that's the part I was getting at. The more lead time, the better. It does default to 2 weeks from now, because if you put it in today, we'll get it done by 2 weeks regardless. If you need it more urgently, you can update the date. And I'm trying to work on having it alert me if people need them on especially short order. You can always send me a message if needed to, or run it up the chain if it's super urgent. Just somebody missed it for some reason and we need it set up in a day or whatever it is. We'll do what we can to accommodate that as needed, but appreciate the lead time. Then it asks you for the exact name of what it would need to look like in Fieldbook. I think there's some ongoing discussions of what these defaults should be. We have some you can see like the gray text kind of gives you a little suggestion of what that often looks like for like these project numbers as well. But we're going to probably in the coming months add some other tweaks to this to make sure everybody's consistent and that it gets put in all the same, like all the contract numbers look in a similar format, project numbers in a similar format. And then it also just asks for a brief description of the type of work there. We have updated this section here, just asking for the project duration, and it lets you choose what type of contract it is, and then to input the total number of days that encompasses. We're going to be adding ways for date tracking in HeadLight here in the near future as well. So we've just updated this section to put it in here if you have that information, and we can have your contract ready whenever we do get more down the line into those things. Here's a place for the upload of the first page of the contract, just because that has a lot of that high level info for us to cross-check. But then we also have entry fields for the bid amount of the project and the NTP dates, because those all get put into the contract information in HeadLight as well. And if there are contract change orders, often this won't be needed because you're setting up a new project. There probably haven't been any change orders, but if there is anything, you can actually type as much into here as you need to kind of give the context if there is something like that. And then beyond that, we have drop downs for island and district. Obviously, if you're in Kauai or something like that, you're not going to have to. It's going to be the same, but there are, for some of these other islands, you can indicate an island that's different than district. And then you can choose a prime contractor or select other. This is kind of tied to the ones that are in HeadLight so far. But if you don't see it in the dropdown, you can always add it here. But that helps us with consistency to be able to know exactly how it's spelled and keep it consistent in HeadLight if it's one of the ones that are already in the system. Charge code also. All these starred ones are marked as mandatory right now. I guess if you, for some reason, didn't know you wanted the project set up and you don't even know some of these fields yet, you could put in some TBD or some placeholder, and we can work with you to get it updated whenever that information is available. But then this next section is kind of the main difference, as I mentioned, for progress payments and change orders. There's some key workflows for the approval process where we need to assign these specific roles for approval. So district engineer, construction engineer, contractor, and engineer are kind of like the 4 defaults. If you think you need some other approvals in there, we do have this just other field where you can write in whatever else. And for example, you can also put the names of other inspectors that might need access to this project if you happen to know that at the time of project setup. So this field's kind of the catch-all for any other people you might want to give access to this project. Obviously, we can always give people access at a later date after it's set up, but it's good to have as much information as you have available when you are setting up the project. Then beyond that, this part hasn't changed from before. We have these templates and places for you to upload different label types. So if you know a bunch of subcontractors you want to add to the project besides the prime, you can upload a spreadsheet into here with that. The pay items is the big one, of course, because we want to have it pre-populated with your contract information. We do have this link available with a template that you can use. It's really basic CSV file, so you could download this, fill in these columns with the necessary information. If you have a spreadsheet that already has this information elsewhere, you can always just upload that, but these are the key columns we want information for to upload into our contract administration on the back end so that progress payments, change orders, all that kind of stuff can work appropriately. Tags is more of a generic one. So you can add a spreadsheet of any tags you want and other labels. So these are all here if you know the information, upload it, please. You can see the only one marked as mandatory is pay items. But if you do happen to have anything else you want, we'll try to pre-populate as much as we can for those label types. And when you submit this form, say you've filled out all the necessary fields, this gets sent into our Salesforce system so that it's tracked as a support request. It gets triaged and input into the system, and then we will email you back when it's available, ask you to check what's there, of course, to see if it has what you expect. And then obviously, if you have follow-up requests like add more people or add a list of contractors at a later date, you can always reach us at our regular support line or reply to that original chain from the request. Any questions on how to fill out any of parts of the form or how it would get set up in HeadLight? As I mentioned, we'll have that available at a link in the wiki. You guys might be able to bookmark it. Cord's going to include it in the upcoming monthly message. I forget the official title of it. But we're going to also try to find a way to embed that within the app also. So if you are on HeadLight Web or somewhere else in HeadLight, you can get to it and directly send it to us from there. So we want to make it as easy for you to find this as you can. You're probably not asking to set up projects on a daily basis or anything, but you can always, if you can't figure it out, you'll always be able to reach out to Cord, the econ group, and myself, and we can always point you to this form also if you can't find it. Cord, any other comments on this? Otherwise, I could maybe chime in on the support request form. And I think we were going to set up a form for setting up existing projects to use progress payments. If you would like me to comment on that at all too.
I don't have any comments, but Calvin, to answer your question in the chat, Calvin asked, ideally this should be started, initiated, and designed post-award to track construction cradle to grave. Yes, that obviously is ideal. And we're working with design to get integrated into the construction systems at the moment. So that's something that we may have available and maybe done in the near future. But at the moment, projects are still being created separately in each e-construction system. So yes, we hear you. Thank you for your comment. That's something that's being worked on. But at the moment, we're still creating the projects in each econ system separately.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah, that's the dream, of course. But then another note is this form obviously is a project intake form, but it is a precursor to next week. And I know, Craig, you just mentioned about progress payment for existing projects, but next week, Craig, at the same exact time, Craig will be giving a training on progress payments for new projects. And he'll also introduce a form that will be able to help existing projects that are not currently using the HeadLight progress payment tool or weren't a pilot project to be able to transition to the new progress payment tool. So you'll be able to see a glimpse of that progress payment tool next week. And this is a form that will help HeadLight get all the information needed, in specific the approval workflows. So putting in your contractor, putting in, who's the specific CE and DE on your project. That's all helpful information for what's to lead to next week's training, in which it's the new progress payment. So.
I see another comment from Danny here, just asking about if there's a vacation or temporary assignments. We do have a way to do that currently in HeadLight, and I think we've set up a few. But right now those requests are coming into us, HeadLight that is, via support to us. And we are working on making it so that a few individuals at HDOT can do that if you need it done more rapidly, of course. So that's definitely an ongoing conversation. But yeah, if you have a specific, especially if your project's already set up and then you need a temporary assignment set up for, say, your next payment, as an example, you would be able to contact us or Econ as a whole, and we'll get it set up so that those signatures are available on the next approvals. I suppose if you had a new project being set up that needs a TA just from the beginning, I would still put in the permanent assignments as these 4 fields and maybe make a note that project is starting with a TA for the CE until June 1st or whatever, some comment like that, so it's obvious when it should end. How do you do? Oh, I see another project here from Bruce. Another question. How do you delete a project that was set up incorrectly or duplicated? That would need to be done by us. We would want to validate, of course, that there aren't inspectors putting information into both, and it has to be merged or something like that. But let's say we as HeadLight can merge projects or delete them if needed, but we don't make that easy for obvious reasons. We don't want data to just disappear. So if you did see that that was the case, I would recommend contacting Econ and our support team, and we could just check there won't be big side effects of getting rid of one and making sure that it's set up correctly. Looks like Marvin has a question as well. Yeah. Would we be able to still print out progress payments and then send it through Adobe Sign? Then we have control of the alternate signers. That's an ongoing conversation. We would like for all the signatures to happen through HeadLight. I know that that's happening with these manual payments and other temporary assignments right now. Ideally, we'd have it all done within HeadLight, and it'll just have the temporary assignments, and it'd be nice and easy for you, and you won't have to do that. I suppose in the meantime, while we're getting some of these ongoing projects into the new progress payment process, you may have cases where you need to do that. So we'd have to talk in a case-by-case basis currently, I think.
As Craig said, Marvin, it's ideal that we keep everything within the system. So if we're creating a progress payment using the new progress payment tool, we're able to send it through HeadLight and have the signatures there. Otherwise, it's quite a manual process, because unless you send the signatures through the HeadLight system, then you're gonna have to draw lines or something on the PDF document and then send it through Adobe eSign and have people sign on that line. But so in terms of that, if you send an email to Craig at the moment, or HeadLight support, they should be able to. It's quite a trivial thing to switch the signature person, so it shouldn't be a problem. It shouldn't take very long. So ideally, it's done in HeadLight and shouldn't take very long if a TA is needed. So just be sure to send in that support request. And like we said, that's how we currently will do it at the moment. But in the near future, we should or someone from HDOT should have the ability to assign TAs, and we wouldn't have to go necessarily through a HeadLight request.
Yeah, and like other things, getting a little bit of lead time if it is available is appreciated, so that it's not 6 p.m. on a Friday needing to add a TA, that kind of thing. Let's see, there's one other comment from Francis that a project was set up and you need to put in other project details but cannot. I might have to look at that one separately, but I could follow up via email with you potentially to see what you need added and how you can most effectively do that. I'll follow up with you. Maybe you can speak to these last two questions, Cord.
Marvin asks, how about to just include the signature lines on the progress payment format? Marvin, I don't understand what you mean by that question. What progress payment format from where?
Oh, no, normally there's the signature part.
Hmm?
Yeah, can't it just have the regular portion where the resident engineer signs off, contractor signs off, construction engineer signs off, and then the district engineer signs
Yes,
off?
HeadLight
Because
HeadLight has that, Marvin. But in order to get that to show in HeadLight, it needs to get routed in HeadLight, and at each step, it then populates onto the PDF. So if you were to create the progress payment in HeadLight and print before it's routed for signature, those signature blocks that you normally see on a progress payment will not show up blank. It will only show up if it gets routed in HeadLight at each step. So if you sent it through the first step and sent it to your resident engineer, and the resident signs it and it's sitting in the contractor's court, if you try and print to PDF at that moment, it'll only show the resident engineer signing and nothing else. So that's why it's ideal to keep it within HeadLight's routing approval system.
Yeah, I can definitely demonstrate that approval process a lot more next week if that's not clear.
yeah, well, how about for us? Would we have the option, like before you go through that approval process in the HeadLight, like in the old formatted way in HeadLight, you could print it out with those signature blocks, and then so we could have the option.
No, because we don't want people to take it outside of the system.
Yeah, it helps ensure that all of the finalized documents in HeadLight are truly the finalized thing with the right numbers, and there's nothing inconsistent in the system is the idea. So we'll show more of that next week. And like I said, so the point of this, we want new projects generally to be able to start using this new process, which I'll highlight next week. But the first process, or the first step, is getting the project set up correctly to effectively do so.
Craig, why don't you show the new support form? now?
Yes. So this is a new
Okay.
one that I was just setting up. We've used with other customers, and we will provide links to as well. But the idea here, a lot of you may have already contacted support at headlight.com or myself directly or others at Headlight directly, or Econ, of course. But the idea here is we wanted to have a form where people can give detailed information if they do encounter issues or requests to Headlight, because often we get an email that might be a sentence or two describing some issue or some request, and we often have to come back to that individual with what are you working on, iPad or web version? What app are you in, or what document are you referencing? Things like that. So we came up with this form that hopefully it'll be a little bit more work to input things up front, but it may result in your issue or request being resolved more quickly because we don't have to go back and forth for additional information as much. So this kind of got the same info at the top of the form. Who are you? What district are you in? But then one of the key required fields is what project were you working on? And then, as I mentioned, were you working on the iPad versus the computer? Were you working in a specific HeadLight app? If you were... Question? Okay. were you working on the home app, fast capture, any of these other things? That gives us a lot of the information. If it's, for example, a bug, we need that information to try to reproduce an issue. To be able to resolve it, we have to be able to find what's causing it, of course. So we try to recreate the issue ourselves. And these are the questions that our support team might come back to you with oftentimes. So we have that in here to try to get it up front. And then you can further describe what the
In HeadLight,
issue was.
similar drop down like ACC. You know how we scroll for our projects in ACC, and then there's all those. You gotta scroll and look for
Oh.
your project.
Here.
It is.
Yeah, this isn't necessarily tied to the list of projects. It allows you to type in whatever that is, and hopefully we can find it from there. But yeah, like you said, maybe if we could make that a drop down of all of the contracts that are available, that would make it easier. I can look at that. Okay. So I was showing you right here, what type of request is this? I was showing you if you have a bug, this is what you would be able to fill out these few fields. We have similar for feature request. Maybe I really wish the iPad app would let me make a list of groceries, whatever that is. You can put it in. We get feature requests all the time. They don't necessarily always make it into the app. Maybe they do in 6 months, in a year's time. But if you have suggestions or things you'd like to see, if we don't know about it, it definitely will never happen. So that kind of thing we appreciate here. And if we start to get 3, 4 of similar feature requests, that's when they really snowball and turn into reality. Most things in HeadLight are the request of somebody's feature request at some point or another. So those are good to have. And then lastly, I had configuration here. If you need project or contract maintenance, like I think it was Francis was saying that some project information needed to be updated. That's one of the options here. User maintenance, like please add so-and-so to 3 different projects. That would be a kind of request that could go into here. Data request others. We might change the options available here as different requests come in and we can more effectively categorize, but I tried to make it so that you can choose whatever you have. And then of course there's just other requests. Oh, I need to have it show a text box here. I will get that added. But that helps us by you filling out this basic information of what your request is related to. Like I said, it hopefully will get us to triage it more quickly to our development team if that's what's required, or it'll get directed to me if it's some sort of project maintenance that I need to do, or our support team can quickly follow up with for bugs or other things. That's the whole idea. This is relatively new. I'll work with Cord and others to make sure it's available and obvious for you guys to fill out. Obviously, you'll still be able to just email our support at headlight.com. That's still there. But this form, if you can fill it out, will go to there as well and will help us point it where it needs to go. Okay. Cord, any other comments on that one?
No, but just to reiterate what Craig is saying, if you fill out this form and fill out the information up front, it makes it easier on the back end to digest the request. And if you do send an email directly to the support at headlight.com or the econ email, then there may be a lot of back and forth requesting this type of information. So we might end up just sending you this form so that you could fill it out, and if there's the information missing. So ideally, with this new form, we're going through this route. It helps HeadLight, it helps them track the issues better so they can prioritize, and in the hopes that these requests would get responded to in a more timely manner. Go ahead, Bruce. Sorry.
Oh no, disregard.
Okay.
Yeah, we want to make that available directly on the iPad as well. So we'll try to make that as easy to find as possible as well.
Marvin, to answer your question, you're essentially asking, is there an audit trail to see when things were signed and who signed at what time? Yes, and that will be shown next week. That is currently embedded and built into the HeadLight new progress payment tool and will be shown at next week's training. So
yeah, I'll be sure to highlight that. And then, as Cord mentioned, we're going to have another form that may or may not apply to you or your projects that I'll talk about next week as well. And that's for projects that are ongoing, like say you've done 15 payments outside of HeadLight. We want to be able to ingest that data, get it up to date in our contract system, and allow those projects to use progress payments as well. But we're still working through the best way to ingest that large amount of data created outside of HeadLight. And we're going to create a separate intake form for projects in that state, I guess you would say. So more to come on that.
any questions on project creation in HeadLight? Because we're going to get to payments next week. But in regards to today's topic, any questions on the support request form or creating new projects in HeadLight?
Will the contractor be able to have alternate signers controlled on their side? I have had those situations. Oh, yes, it is.
Autocorrect is supposed to be on their side because
Oh,
yeah, it's happened like sometimes some companies they have to have the project manager forward to someone else to do the signing.
mhm. It
But
is possible.
they're not sure which one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it is possible with the way it's set up now to assign that role, like the contractor signer, to multiple people if needed. The caveat is they would each get an email alert when it's available for them to sign, but any of them would be able to sign. I don't think we've done that to date, so we'd have to just make sure that works appropriately.
And you
But
see,
as it,
sometimes the contractor just want us to send it to their point of contact as the signer, but then sometimes the other person that they will have signed doesn't want their email release.
Hmm. Okay, well, yeah, if say the contractor had Jim Smith or whoever as the signer listed in HeadLight, that they could hit approve. I mean, we don't know who is logged in. If they're as a company sharing that login, that's up to them, I suppose. But we can have multiple people with their email addresses associated with it. We'd have to see what that looks like for each contract, I suppose.
Yeah, for some reason in Adobe Sign they're able to do that, but I'm not sure. Yeah, how you're gonna do it in HeadLight.
Well, we can look at each situation and see if we need to change something. Okay, any other questions? Okay, well, there's nothing else. We'll have more next week. And we'll get more and more groups using progress payment and change order through HeadLight.
Thanks everybody for joining. I hope to see you next week. Next week will be probably more exciting in that it's a new progress payment tool. So we will be sending out these forms in the construction newsletter. A recording of this training will be sent out in the newsletter as well and also be on the wiki site. So I'll be on the lookout for that. And hope to see you all next week. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you,
Thank you,
Cord.
everyone.
Thank you.